if we're possessed, then we're not afraid. Our specific function is to be filled with terror and fear and irrationalism and stupidity. I mean, this is why they make films like Resident Evil Extinction, the third Resident Evil film coming out. Those films are about us. Okay, they're just making fun of people. Okay, I mean, it's an extreme way. It's not a literal take on people, but it's an extreme, which is meant to be an approximation of the real world system. I mean, in that film, you have it's not an Illuminati system, but it's sort of the workers for the Illuminati. They live underground. They're like the world controllers, sort of a New World Order control level. And they have very, very powerful technology. And then the rest of the world is just a bunch of completely pathetic, cannibalistic, clueless freaks. And what they're trying to do is model the current world in an extreme way to tell us what. It's the same with, I mean, books have been written on this, like Plato's Republic. I had on my show a whole big, long discussion on Plato's Republic, same idea in different ways.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to take an extended break, and we'll take off right where we left off. We are discussing the religion of the Illuminati, the dark spiritual side of the world, folks. And I've got, I'm doing it with my co-host, Jeff Grupp. And Jeff, I've got a listener, Charles here, and he is wanting you to explain the Nephilim, where they come from, where they're going, and why they're lurking in the dark watching all of us.
Okay, then the Nephilim are, well, let me just say first, behind this whole system, everybody has to remember back when they first discovered that everything they learned in school was not a lie in general, and behind things is this absolutely horrific, we originally probably thought group of people conducting all these events and whatnot. We all have to remember how astonished we were to think they were so well organized and so cruel, how they didn't act like people that we ordinarily are familiarized ourselves with in our day-to-day life. And we have to remember that how different we looked upon that group when we first learned about this whole system. Now, what I have found, this is has to do with my film again that I've made, The Illuminati Are the Nephilim. Anybody can buy it if they want to on antimatterradio.com. It's $11.99 including shipping, and it's 3.5 hours long. And basically, I go through a 5-step argument proving that the Illuminati are the Nephilim. Now, so let me answer the question. However, the Nephilim is the ultimate group behind everything, and you can prove that they're not human. It's not necessarily extraterrestrial, as has been popularized by Zecharia Sitchin and so forth, and other authors that have followed him. I've got huge problems with Sitchin personally, but we don't need to. That's not really very important right now, and he did a lot of great work as well. But behind this whole prison state, Earth prison, that we've been discussing, which is easy to escape, remember, as we said at the very beginning of the show, behind this whole thing is basically a demonic force. I know it sounds preachy and Bible-y, but it's just, you can prove it's the truth.
And this comes from a former atheist, right?
Yeah, I used to be a rabid, fiery atheist. I even published, when I was still in academia, publishing professional articles in philosophy, because I taught in the philosophy departments, and I was getting my PhD at Purdue in philosophy, and I even published an article trying to prove the non-existence of God. Actually, ironically, that article actually came out. It took 2 years to publish, because I submitted, from the time I submitted to the time it came out, and by the time it was published, I kind of was not even not an atheist anymore, which is kind of humorous. But it was published in a very...
So then you had to debunk your own thoughts.
Well, I actually did, John, in teaching. I used to tell my students that kind of funny story that I questioned the whole thing now, and I actually went and would debunk. It was so easy to... Basically what the article did, it's called A New Argument for the Non-Existence of God, published in an academic journal called Sophia. I think it was, I can't remember what year, 05 or 06 it came out, and I wrote it in 2002 and submitted it in 03. And basically what the article does is takes the way that professional philosophers for thousands of years have tried to describe God's existence, and I attack their models of it. Now, the problem with that is their models of God are not very good models. So I'm just attacking their map, not the actual thing. That's pretty much the attack I gave. When I humorously told my students I was attacking my own article. But and I even knew that in the back of my mind when I was writing it. See, when you're in academia, you can learn to be pretty sharp and use lots of words and so forth. But the level of rationality is very low, and also academia is a domain of it's very high on imagination. They're not sticking to what they can see with their eyes. They develop theory after theory after theory. It's just endless. And if you go talk to the average academic, and they're not looking at the world and doing experiments right on the world and then writing about it, they're off in theory land 9 times out of 10. So it's it's just a big way. It's just a way of creating all these illusions that people believe.
Yeah. Well, as long as you're able to speak behind the lectern, then you're the expert, and all those minds that are sitting there watching and listening, just draw that in, I think, and that's the dangerous part with our education system. Too many people just go there thinking that all truth is there. And then they get out. The shameful thing about humanity is once they get out of school, whether they leave high school and never go on or college, whatever it is, they think that the learning part is over. I didn't start to learn anything in life until after I left college. And I hope a lot of our listeners have figured that out too. Jeff, do you, as I do, believe that there is this? You say that Nephilim are the ones behind the veil, and it's a demonic or a demon presence. Do you believe they make up Satan, or is Satan real? How do you define that evil? The hierarchy of the evil behind that veil? Well,
here's basically how I answer that question. I've never had any experience, I don't think. I mean, I delved into the dark ecstasy that we've been discussing, but as far as having an experience of Satan during that time, I never had anything like that. So the only way I would know if Satan was a real entity or not would be the following way. And let me explain here a couple steps. First, we know that our education, as we just got done saying, in the universities is bunk. Okay?
Yeah.
And we can go into that in huge details, we will, in the coming weeks. And we also know that the world religions, interestingly, all correlate with each other to an astonishing degree sometimes. And point 3, we also know that the world religions have archaeology and history on their side. That if you want to learn the false archaeology and the false history, go to your university and listen to what they say. They'll just ignore they'll tell you all about humankind's past, and they won't even mention the pyramids. Okay, they'll tell you come from a monkey, and if you raise your hand in the anthropology class and say, well, wait a minute, how can we come from monkeys and then build these pyramids, which nobody even knows how to build now in Egypt and other places, and they will not have an answer. They'll just ignore it and say, slaves built those by dragging the 80-ton rocks. And then you can raise your hand and say, well, wait a minute, how did they do that, drag the 80-ton rocks? And they'll just come up with some theories which you can pick apart. And then if you raise your hand again and say, well, wait a minute, there's a temple in Lebanon called Baalbek where they're not 80-ton rocks. The rocks are so heavy, nobody even knows how much they weigh, and they're all perfectly cut, put into place, and so forth. So what they'll do is they just ignore all that in academia and give you this false picture of history. So the point is, to answer your question,